Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, a podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I'm your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And I was away from our game yesterday, but David, Patrick, and Cody went along without me, so fucking dish, bitch. What happened? Let me know.
It was a good session. I mean, we were going to start at like 2 my time, and then we ended up starting at 2:30. But then we went until the normal time, so we played from 2:30 until 9 my time. Um, took a couple small breaks in there, so maybe like let's just call it 3. But we played for a solid 6 hours. Uh, it went pretty well. We didn't quite get through the the quest. I had planned on it being a few sessions and maybe kind of extending it once you and possibly Diana are able to join.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like, well, hey guys, like, do you want to play for like another hour and a half, or do you just want to call a cliffhanger here? And Patrick was like, well, I don't know, schedule like a real short session throughout the week so that next week Matt, if he's going to be able to join, can join. And then if Diana wanted to jump in too, we could do that. So I think we're going to play a pickup session, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on Thursday this week. But it went pretty well, all things considered. I was hoping maybe it would be a little more opportunity for Patrick to kind of speak a little bit more, but that wasn't really the case.
Yeah.
Um, Although, he did do a little bit, and it was kind of cool, and I handled I wanted to kind of keep the pace of the quest up. Um, so we didn't really do a lot of role playing, like, in character dialogue and stuff like that. It was just kind of, he tells you this, and kind of, this is what he says, and this is what you do when you're out in the town or whatever, doing this and doing this and doing this. And so, yeah, one thing was kind of, I'm probably gonna have to like mention it to Patrick, is like there's a NPC in the party who is kind of their like escort. It's this druid, and the both of the characters have reason to be like suspicious of him. Um, and I kind of leverage the fact that it's like they don't have any mind points between them, neither of them, and
Hmm.
and they don't have any appeal between them, and so they're trying to like get information out of the guy, and he's explaining stuff, but he's like a druid, and I'm like, look, dude, it's like if you asked a physicist something about physics and he's trying to explain it to you, you just don't understand, like you
Yeah.
don't know. And I was like, you can try to interrogate him, roll an appeal roll, and it's like fail, and I'm like, okay, so he just gives you more gobbledygook. And and Cody throughout the whole adventure, because the quest hook was that in the last adventure, when you recovered a bunch of the treasure from the guy that betrayed you, you had this big treasure hoard that you were trying to recover from him. And I was like, among that was this big tome, and like Cora says that you should go seek out this druid, because he might have some use for it. And he, looks it over and he tells them like, yes, I do have some use for this, and I can use it for this to do some good for the land. And they're like, do some good, fucking like a druid, bro. You're probably gonna do some nefarious shit. He's like, no, no, bro, it's cool. And and so, but like throughout the whole like quest, like Cody just kept saying like, why did she tell us to do this? Like, why did like the two dumbest, like fucking least like charismatic characters get the task of like taking the book to do the magic thing? He's like, this seems like a thing Matt's character and Diana's character would be better at. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know. I mean, you're just more physically capable and stronger and faster. Maybe they thought there was going to be some perils, and but it was like 4 or 5 times. Like, why did they tell us to do this? We don't understand a lick of it. We're just kind of going along. Like, okay, sure, we're killing the bad guys and shit, but like, why? Um, so there was a little bit of a mystery to the adventure. and we left off at a pretty cool cliffhanger. That's why I was like, hey, we can do a cliffhanger here, or we can complete the adventure because there's probably not another cliffhanger in there. They have to go to this temple now that they got this like artifact. It's like an eye, and the eye is like unstable, and they sussed it out in this cave where it like had corrupted all these men, and they're like these Morlock kind of monster guys, and they had to fight them off, and they get the thing. But now they need to kind of get the molding that goes around it to kind of stabilize it so that they can use it for the magic purpose to kind of stave off this nebulous bad thing that's going to happen. And and so the whole time, like Patrick is being really suspicious, and I'm like thinking, like, dude, you're supposed to have the gullible flaw,
Mm.
and you're continually being very suspicious of this guy, even though he's given you several explanations as to like what he's doing and why he needs to do it. But we left off on a pretty cool cliffhanger. They're going to this temple where they get the other part of the artifact before they go to this like druidic circle to perform the ritual. And they come to the temple, and there's this big like 16, 17 foot like iron statue of a warrior, and it's facing the inside of the temple. And so they're like, what's with that? And the temple is like made of stone and stuff, right? And it's this big iron statue. And so they're like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna. They leave some offerings for the statue and stuff, and like, look over us and all this jazz. A couple coins and pour out some wine and shit, which I thought was neat. And then they go over and they set their first the druid sets his first foot on the step, and the eyes of the statue like light up like fire, and steam comes out of its nose, and it creaks down off this fucking pedestal. And I was like, okay, we're gonna leave it there. Like it's like so
Ooh,
that's gonna be pretty pretty cool, I think.
nice. Well done.
But yeah, so that's yeah, I think that's we left off there. Is it was pretty good pacing to the adventure. Had a couple of combat encounters, but I'm starting to realize, like, I'm like, man, they fought some scorpinders, which are like a scorpion spider beast.
Mm.
There was a trio of them. They fought a horde of the corrupted men. They fought another something else, another horde of rabble, I think. Anyway, they got like 3 or 4 fights. Neither of them suffered a single lifeblood of damage.
No shit.
They fought a bunch of cannibals because what happened is the druid was captured by cannibals along with his merchant's daughter. So I got to put in a dame in distress kind of
Hmm.
trope for, and they escorted her back, and they got this fancy wine in the Barbarians of Limera world called Raku wine. So they got a couple of favors from this noble merchant, this merchant guy, and a barrel of this wine that I was like, okay, I'm gonna say it's like an alchemical wine, and you can fill up 10 costrals, and each costral has like 5 drinks, and if you swig it when you after a fight, like you get your lifeblood back, you get like an extra couple lifeblood every time you do that. So I thought it was a pretty cool reward without like introducing any magic. And I was like, there's just 2 of them. They might need a little more heals. But yeah, they were just running through shit. Like they were just fucking shit up. I was like, but I didn't I only put I think most of the fights were rabble fights, and then there was one, I think the Scorpinders were toughs, but there hasn't been any villains yet, and there's only been one fight with some toughs. But now there's a giant iron statue that's trying to fight them, so hopefully it'll make up for it. So I don't know.
Nice.
Looking forward to wrapping up the session, and just in case either of them are listening, I prefer not to give away the ending and kind of how that's going to go, but it should be pretty cool, I think.
Uh, we had our Blades in the Dark game on Thursday, and this just goes to show you that not all hacks are good for some games. So the game master for our Blades in the Dark game wanted to try this new rule set that
It's not you. It's not you.
it's
You're
not
not the
me.
game master.
It's not
It's
me.
not this dude. He has 2 thumbs and isn't the fucking game master for this game. This
Fucking
guy.
this guy. But he wanted
Nice.
to try
Anyway,
out
continue.
he wanted to try out this like this add-on for it because it added a bunch of cool stuff for all the playbooks, and I was like, okay, yeah, just down. Until we actually got into real play, and then the first thing that came up was oh god, I can't remember what the actual circumstance of it was, but come to find out, in this hack, the way that it works is you don't roll when an obstacle comes in front of you, you only roll when you are in the midst of a conflict, something like that. Either way, like if I wanted to say pick a lock, and I would roll tinker. But he says just go ahead, okay, so you attempt the lock, and you make it. I was like, I didn't roll for anything. He's like, yeah, it's an easy lock. At first I was like, all right, no problem, because my character is a leech. The leech, I'm the head of this cult, and the leech playbook is kind of like a alchemist, artificer, tinker kind of class, if you want to bring it down to that. I capture ghosts and put them in machines to make different little, constructs and machine, gadgets that I make.
So you ain't afraid of no ghost, in
I
other
ain't,
words.
no, I trap them and I use them for nefarious reasons.
But don't cross the streams. You can't do that.
But as we got along more, like we played about an hour and 10 minutes before a single die was rolled. And all of us, out of the group of us, so there's me and Calvin, this guy Calvin, both of us, we're kind of old school gamers. He's been playing longer than you and I have. Like he started playing back in the 70s. And then there's Keith, and Keith is fine. He's kind of like our Patrick. Super smart dude, works in computers and software, much like Patrick does. Very quiet, not very much of a role player, but he loves playing the games with us. Billy, I always give him shit about his name. Really cool dude, but he's that fucking dude. Like we had to damn near break his arm in order for this game, because we wanted it to be a real dark, grim, dark setting, and the feeling, we wanted everything to feel very to the setting of the actual game, which is very grim, dark, and down. And he's a big comedian, which is fine in a lot of games. Sure, have your fun, but I'll tell you what, we went through about 10 different names of his character before we finally settled on, okay, you can be Detective Ghostapo. And it's still, every time that we say it, both me and Dan, the game master, were just like, you motherfucker. And he wanted to have
spirit of the game here, buddy.
Yeah, he wanted to have a Macho Man voice and all this other stuff, and that's just the kind of the guy he is. Really cool dude, love him. But he's more of just the jokester of the group. And then there's Phaeton, who is our idiot stoner, that is a very good role player, but he's a fucking moron. He's lovable to death. I love him to death. He's a great dude, but dude's dumb. And
so you got a guy in your group named Billy, and you tease him for his name, but you also have a guy named Phaeton in your group, and
it's his real name though. He's also
Phaeton?
he's Phaeton. Yeah, he's Native American
Phaeton.
that lives in Canada on a reserve and smokes a lot of weed.
Native American. He kind of gets a break for that, I guess. Phaeton? Come on, man. That's
Phaeton.
It's a fucking weird name.
It is. Oh, trust me.
That sounds like a fantasy role-playing game character name.
I know, right? No, we give him shit about everything else he does because he's like I said, dude's an idiot. But he's one of those weird, like, redneck geniuses almost. He took a motor from a lawnmower and put it on a mountain bike, and he made a mini scooter pretty much out of it. And he just rides that to work every day. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Is it insensitive to call a Native American a redneck?
Good call. I retract my statement just in case, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
But see, that's just
redneck's kind of a lifestyle, not really a racial thing. But
and like Phaeton and his tribe that he lives with, they don't, they're not rednecks, but he's got that mentality of one when it comes to jury rigging stuff together. And it was just like, how the fuck did you do that? He was like, I don't know. I just thought if you did this would open up the throttle. So I did this over here and I did this there, and it just made the tire go as long as I attached this to this guy. And it's just like, dude,
some
you
people
don't.
That way, they're just mechanics whiz.
Yeah,
like,
you can't tell time on an analog clock, but you can do this. He's like, fucking right. I get high, and all of a sudden I can make a motorcycle.
Yeah, but see, to be fair, it's like you like it's not it's probably less weird to you when it goes the other direction. Like
Hmm.
somebody that is more academically inclined, like I can explain to you, for instance, plenty of academic concepts, right? Like especially philosophical ones. And some people just look at me like, how can like, but like, ask me to like do any electrical work around the house.
Hmm.
No, right? Some people are that way. They can explain to you like how computer code works, but you're like swing this hammer, and they're just like hitting themselves in the head
Yeah.
with it. They're like, I don't, what is this? I don't know how to do
uh,
that. Like,
yeah. It's just
so it's like, yeah, we understand it a little bit more.
I fucking love him though. He's a great dude. But even
Yeah.
and Phaeton is more of a role player in general for games. Uh, but when we came across this new mechanic that Dan was trying to introduce, all of us were just like, whoa, this is weird. I don't like that. I like to be able to say, I want to use this attribute, this trait, in order to do this thing. I want to roll for it and see if I succeed. And Dan, he was at first he was like, hey man, just give it a little while. Let's see how it goes. The very next time that it came up, he thought to himself, or he said, should I make you roll for this? And we're like, I don't know, dude. You're the one with these new rules. You got to tell us. He's like, you know what? Fuck these new rules. We're not doing this. We're gonna go back to the old way, and we're just gonna do it regular.
It's, but like, okay, to defend kind of the attitude.
Hmm.
First of all, this is actually the distinct absence of a rule.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
you could call it a home rule, but I don't even call it a rule because you're actually not. But I mean, I guess. But I actually don't mind some games that Barbarians of Lemura is this way a little bit. It basically says, look, unless your character's under duress, right? You're trying to pick a lock
Hmm.
like while some people are charging you down and you have to get the door open before they get to you, then yeah, you need to make a roll. Otherwise, just tell me what your bonus is. What's your bonus to lock picking? It's like, oh, I got a plus, 5 total. And I just compare it to how difficult the lock is. And unless there's some cost, like if you fail to pick the lock, a trap goes off, then presumably you'll just be able to do it eventually. And so you just don't make the character roll. You just say, in the same way we understand this with strength score, you say, okay, you're gonna lift this thing, and you go, okay, what's your strength score? And you go, my strength is 17, and you go, yeah, you can pick it up. Like it's
Yeah.
within the
Mm.
bounds of like what is reasonable for your character to pick up. You could apply that to a lot of things during exploration and role playing. Um, in particular, like, when you're role playing, typically there is some cost to failing a particular role. But if you just wanted to say, like in VTM, they just say, hey, what your total dice pool, if your pool exceeds the difficulty of the roll. So if you have 8 in your dice pool and the difficulty is 7 or lower, then you don't need to roll. You can just do it. And I don't mind rules like that. I think it kind of streamlines a little bit of the exploration. It does take out some of the dice mechanics, and if you're really into that, then I guess maybe it could be frustrating, but I think it kind of just helps you get on with the story. Like why,
Mm.
oh, I'm gonna roll and like, okay, so like, okay, well, I just tried again. I tried again. I tried again. It's like, well, eventually you'll get it, like so I kind of get that if that's that way it operates, but if it's just you can basically do whatever, even if you don't, I don't have thieves tools and I don't really know how to pick a lock, but I'm gonna try to pick this lock with a matchstick and a piece of wire I found. And
Hmm.
you're like, you can do that, and it's like, really,
Yeah.
I can just do it? Like, that's weird.
Yeah. I don't know. As we were going through it, it was just weird because there was plenty of times that we thought we may have should have rolled. We were spending a ton of stress for no reason. Like we were doing a bunch of other mechanics for the game, except there was no rolling
Hmm.
dice. And like I said, we didn't roll a single die
Oh.
until like an hour in. But we're spending stress and starting
Hmm.
clocks left and right, and it just got kind of weird. Uh, so yeah, we just kind of pushed that to the side. We might look at it later. Dan threatened us with it, so we'll see what happens. But I hope we don't, because I don't know. It's just weird because I like knowing when a dice roll is coming up or when I should use one, and this takes that
Yeah.
away. So that's the reason I think I
Yeah,
don't
but
like it,
I
and I
mean,
think
I,
that's
I
why,
guess I would.
and I think that's why Calvin didn't like it either, because he's a little more old school like I am.
But I would posit, like, is it really? I guess it depends on how it's being enacted in the game. But like,
Hmm.
you don't have to roll for those. You just go like, I will investigate. I have a passive investigation of 20, and I go, you find some stuff, or I look around the room and I have a passive perception of X. No roll necessary. You either see it or you don't, depending on
Yeah.
threshold. If it's kind of like that, where it's like, okay, this lock is easy enough and no one's breathing down your neck, there's no trap or high cost that you're gonna alert someone on the inside. It's just a door and it's a fairly easy lock and you have a fairly modest skill. So I see no need to make you roll, and if that's the way it's gonna go throughout the game, but I think if it rubs you the wrong way because it's like, well, what's the point of presenting challenges like a locked door if there is no risk of failure? Like,
Mm.
why not just have the door be open?
I, you know
Like,
what? I
like you
should,
could just do that, you know? I
I
mean,
should
it
say,
leverages your skills.
I should say how the dice mechanics work for Blades in the Dark. For any of those people out there that have never played Blades in the
Hmm.
Dark or any PBTA game, it's a 2d6 game. Well, it's more of a pool system, but your pool never gets larger than like four, really. And you only have to have the highest on one of the die. So the more dice you have, the more likely you are to succeed. But you roll a d6. One and two are automatic failures. Three and four is a success with a complication, and then five is success. Six is a success with a boon. So
Hmm.
that's where it kind of changes things up because depending on the number that you roll, it's
Ah,
supposed to affect the story. That's the whole reason why I think it kind of
okay.
bugged us a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, eliminating those gradients, and we'll kind of get to that if we're going to talk about house
Hmm.
rules today. But eliminating gradients is not typically a way to get things. If the story hinges on some outcome of a die roll, then you should be having the die roll as a general rule. So,
Oh, and baby, are we? David already brought it up. Continuing on our mechanics month, I decided to dive deep in the annals of ChatGPT, asking, "Hey, compile me a good list of everybody's favorite homebrews that they've talked about online since 2014, so that, of course, the
mm,
majority of them are going to be D&D, but it popped out a list that are not completely all D&D. And then I thought David and I could talk about some of the homebrews that we really like, maybe other mechanics from other systems that we always bring over to our games, or house rules that we just create on the fly. So I think I should kick us off with my AI generated. I'll go through different sections, and then we can go through some of the stuff that we've come up with as well. Maybe they'll relate to the sections that I bring up. The first one is in character creation and progression.
sure.
Is system neutral, max HP at level one. Never fucking roll for your HP. It seems even in OSR games these days, the a lot of people say, "Fuck this shit. We don't want to have to worry about having one hit point to start. Just take max HP at the very beginning." Characters will always start with maximum possible HP at level one rather than rolling. It's usually because of survivability, especially in early levels. And if you are an player, you know for a fact that this is very important because survivability in OSRs is like the main part of the game.
Mm.
Ugh. This one, I want to know what you think about this, Dave, because I've done this. This is mostly for D&D. I know that there are other games that do feats, but granting a free feat at character creation to boost customization.
Um, Not really a fan. Feats are cool and they're a pretty big bump, and D&D doesn't make it's not super deadly at level one, especially if you have a
No, but
decent
it can be
sized
game
party, and it
breaking.
also undermines the human variant feature, which gives you a feat, and so
Yep.
it doesn't undermine it. I mean, I guess you would get two, but um, So it would have the noted benefit of giving your character a little bit more texture at level one. In D&D, your character at level one feels pretty generic.
Hmm.
And that's great for entry level players who have never played the game and they only have a few options. But for um, anybody that's played more than two or three campaigns, you're likely like, okay, give me a level bump already. The fucking level one is just like so like bare bones, and so you're just kind of trying to grind through it to get to the level two or three when you get like a class feature or something.
Yeah.
So I understand the spirit of it, but that said, I usually, at least in my campaigns, level one goes pretty fast. It's
Yeah.
maybe one or two sessions,
Yeah.
and
I
you
don't
get
know
a
any
level bump.
game.
So
I don't know any game system out there these days that does a leveling system that doesn't expect level two by either the end of the first session or at least sometime at the second. If you go past the second
yeah,
session
maybe.
at level one, that's usually a big like, what the fuck?
Well, depending on how long your sessions are, but yeah, usually between, let's call it 8 and 10 hours of gameplay, you ought to have a
Hmm.
level, and that can get gobbled up pretty quickly. Um, Especially like the intro to a campaign and the intro to an adventure of that 8 or 10 hours, let's call it. I mean, at least 2 or 3 hours of it are going to be like, exposition and a little bit of role playing and kind of like, they're not going to be like, you maybe have like, 3 or 4 fights and a couple of like skill checks and stuff like that. So it should be fairly survivable. And the intro chapters to a campaign are typically getting to know the other players, getting to understand what your character's capabilities are, having a few conflicts, and then you build your character. So it's like the first chapter of a book is just kind of setting the stage, and that's kind of how I think of level one, two. I
Hmm.
understand the spirit of it, but I don't think it's typically very necessary. It's not a bad house rule, but
No. This one, I know David has been a fan of for fucking ever since it was kind of like introduced, and a lot of games that come out that have come out a little bit more recently. This is their go-to ability score generation via point buy or standard array. Not a lot of games these
mhm.
days do rolling for stats anymore. Uh, D&D, Pathfinder, some OSR games are still very adamant, or not adamant, but their number one way to do it is roll, and then they say, or you could do point buy or standard array. And I know David,
Mhm.
you've been a big advocate for this uh, because you prefer to
Yeah, I mean, I
use
would even.
standard array or point buy for everything.
It's generally speaking, I just prefer point buy, and that can work out to standard array. But I mean, heck, at this point, I don't even know that I would call that a house rule anymore. It's kind of the status quo at this point. Same thing with starting with maximum hit points. I mean, I would say that in today's day and age, unless you're playing an OSR, most role-playing games probably are those are the status quo at that point. It wouldn't even have occurred to me to think of those as alternative or house rules. But yeah, it's a leveling device. You
Hmm.
want the characters to all be on equal footing because otherwise, if a player is the same thing with the spirit of the feat, I guess. If a player rolls some crummy scores, and I've had this happen with rolling scores, where it's like one player is like the rogue, and he doesn't roll so great, and he's got like a 12 dexterity. It's his high score, and you're like, okay, that's not great. But he's like, yeah, I'm like dexterous. And then you got like a ranger who's like a melee ranger. He's got a 14 dex because that guy just rolled like a 14, two 15s, and an 8 or something. And you're
Hmm.
just like, okay, so now like that guy can just do my job as well as I do my job. And unless you're really into like a role playing heavy uh, sort of scenario, then that's not going to work. But if you have this, 4 to 6 traditional attributes in a game, um, it just works out better for equity. And there's trade-offs. It's not just one character is like powerful, and he doesn't have to make any, or she doesn't have to make any tough decisions about where to make their character weak. Um, Weaknesses make your character interesting, and so it just kind of is self-correcting.
Hmm. Going into combat here, called shots and hit locations, allowing specific attacks on body
Ooh.
parts with added effects, often with penalties to hit. We've used these in the past where somebody says, "I want to go for the head," and in D&D, where there are no real called shots, but David has always been very gracious about it, where he will say, you're going for the head, that's going to be a -4 to your roll. Maybe these days, if we did it in 5th edition, you might just say you got disadvantage. But if you hit, maybe it would do crit value, or it'll do extra damage. But that is a house rule that is being used quite a bit more these days.
So, hello.
Yep, gotcha.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think I cut out for a minute there. Yeah, but like I really like the called shot mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really occur to me that it's something that's like a homebrew.
Mm-hmm.
But it came up in the game last night, actually. I was kind of happy with the players because, as I mentioned at the start of the show, they fought they're like these spider scorpion monsters. And in Barbarians of Lemura, you can spend a hero point to get a mighty success. And typically, at least we've been playing, that mighty success is either used for what's called a crushing blow or a slashing
Mm-hmm.
deep cut or something, extra damage, or it's used for a rabble slayer, which allows you to dispatch with an equal number of enemies to your damage, provided that they're rabble. But there's another option, which is precision strike, which allows you to do something like damage a particular area of an enemy. So you can blind their eyes, and it gives them a penalty to their attack roll. And I was happy that the players in Barbarians of Lemura, like I think you've sensed that poison is a lot more dangerous than it is in D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, oh shit, these things have poisonous stingers. I'm going to use I'm going to use a hero point to spend a mighty shot, and I just want to slice its fucking stinger off. And I'm like, oh, there you go, right on. Like I slice their stinger off, and it's like, nope, no more poison. And so they avoided getting poisoned. I really thought that was going to go a different way, but they remembered like, oh, I can use this so there's like a built-in mechanic in Barbarians of Lemura that allows you to do that, which I think is very cool.
Critical hits deal max damage plus an additional roll. So instead of rolling twice, the first die is maxed for a more cinematic crit. I know a lot of games already do this. I think this is kind of aimed towards D&D because they just do, whenever you crit, you just roll your damage die twice. So I can see it. I don't think it's going to break anything too bad. I think it might actually speed some things up. So this could be good. And it does feel better than when you roll a natural 20 and then you roll your 2d6 for your short sword and you roll 2 1s. And it's just kind of like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Shitty crit.
Yeah.
So that one,
Yeah.
I give it a pass. That's a good pass. Potions as a bonus action. Everybody knows about this. I think everybody is doing this homebrew rule. Fuck, man. D&D, the new 2024, 2025, 5.5 edition, whatever you want to call it. That's their thing now. I think drinking a potion is a bonus action.
Yeah.
Death saves house rules. Oh, so people have just been taking death saves from D&D 5e and putting it into their own games. Probably because death in other game systems are kind of weird. It's more of you have to count, below whatever you take, or if you take this much, yada yada yada. Death saves are just a little bit easier to deal with. And it says here, rolling a natural 1 counts as 2 failures. 20 lets you get back up with a 1 hit point, which 5e does by default. So I'm guessing a lot of Pathfinder players are probably bringing this in, because I don't even really know what the actual death mechanics are in Pathfinder in the 2nd edition now. So I'm guessing a lot of people are just porting that over. Exploration and roleplay. And I love the first one that's on here, skill challenges and skill combos, bringing back the 4E style skill challenges, or allowing players to combine multiple skills for creative solutions. If you've been a listener to this show for a while, you know that David and I are big fans of skill challenges and continue to use them no matter what. Even if they're not in the edition that we're playing, I'm still going to use them. I bring them over. I did them. Well, Savage Worlds has their own version, but other games that I've run, I will still use a skill challenge set at any point because I fucking love them. I think that is the greatest thing that came out of fourth edition was the skill challenge.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah, they allow for you to kind of be more cinematic and do almost like a travel montage, but of like an amalgam of skills as a party moves across or is a hostile to do
Mm,
anything where a whole suite of skills that are not necessarily combat related would be useful in a way that is like compressed because typically your skills are kind of a slow leak. Like as they come up, you make skill checks. When you explore, you check things, you whatever, whatever, whatever. But like compressing them into like one dense file where like that's all the PCs are doing and giving it some dramatic stakes can make the adventure feel like you're making progress faster. Um, and you know that there's some consequences and that everybody has it makes it more acute because everyone's skills are like all next to one another in a
mm,
concentrated time frame and so it allows everybody to kind of realize that their characters like have value and weaknesses and appreciate the other characters' values. Where if it's kind of like a slow seep, you go out through an entire adventure and the wizard never kills anybody in a battle with a magnificent spell, but he's making arcane checks all along the way and he's like
mm-hmm.
doing knowledge checks or whatever. It might not be immediately evident what his value in the party is. So I like them too. On my list too, by the
Yeah.
way.
Uh, Going into magic and mechanics and going back into a little bit more combat, I love this one here because David brought this one into our D&D game. Wounds and injuries table. Taking critical damage may result in lingering injuries. And ever since we
Hmm.
brought it into our game, I think I'm going to steal it and I'm going to put it into every other game that I run because I really enjoy that. I think that's really good. I know some people with their games, they make it very difficult, if not impossible, to get rid of lingering injuries. At least David has some good rules to get rid of them, which I applaud. Even though it is usually very costly, and you might even have to go on another quest in order to get rid of it.
Because if otherwise, if they, you realize just like with exhaustion, it's a good lever to pull, but you realize that if it happens too frequently, you say, oh, you fall unconscious, you get a lingering injury. But then like if they begin to stack up where a player has like three or four of them, then you're like, okay, that seems like I need to give them an opportunity to kind of get rid of these at a certain clip. So it's like, and generally speaking, any given person in the party likely has, you know, one or two characters at any given interval likely have a lingering injury, but it's hardly ever like everyone in the party has one or like one person or two,
Hmm.
because then it just really it makes it difficult for you um, to not go outside the player's capabilities because now they have a handicap. So,
All right. Right before we get into our little list, there's just a few other ones here that were for the generic or narrative focused TTRPGs. Um, there was some here that I wanted to bring up because I thought they were really good. Oh, right. Of course, something like Benny's or Inspiration like Mechanics for good RP. I will always bring in something like that. Uh, right now, we're doing hero points or fate points if you want. But I think I will always
mhm.
bring in some sort of little meta currency that will be used to, even for if it is just as simple as a reroll like a Benny, I think I will always continue to add in. Um, Momentum or luck mechanics added in for the systems. Meh. I don't think those are really. I really don't like this failing forward as a default rule. It can be good, but it just. I think it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and being an old school type player. Uh, because we've always in the past, even if you did fail, you still learned something. Back when we used XP, you still gained XP from
Mhm.
failing because you learned that, oh, don't do that. So you would still gain XP. But the failing forward as a
Yeah.
default rule is kind of, if you fail, no matter what, you're always going to continue to progress. And I don't know if I like that. I like to have the idea
Well, it
of,
kind of
if you,
robs it.
yeah, if you fail, you should at least have to think about starting over.
Yeah, well, it just kind of robs the game of some of the stakes, right? So
Mm.
I'm with you there.
All right, in this one here, I know that I didn't know this was a very popular one, but I guess it's become very popular within the last 6 years, especially in the OSR uh, community. Shields shall be splintered rule. Sacrifice your shield to negate a hit has become a very popular homebrew rule.
Yeah, it's a baseline rule in Barbarians of
Yeah,
Lemera. It's something you can
exactly.
spend a hero point on to either shatter your weapon or shatter your shield and just absorb the entirety of a blow. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's kind of cinematic. There's a cost to it. There's a
Hmm.
double cost to it. If you think about it, you need to spend a hero point and you lose a weapon or a shield.
Yep.
So that's cool. And like for your character in particular, it's like you don't have a shield and you won't sacrifice your weapon because it's a trademark weapon, because it's really hard to replace. So that kind of adds an interesting role playing element for characters with trademark weapons like that.
Hmm. All right. That's pretty much the it. That's it of the list that I have. There's some other stuff in here, but it's more of like they're not homebrew rules really. They're more of like secondary rules that are in the rule books. I just picked out the ones that
Yeah,
were kind of like homebrew, popular homebrew that people are doing. So let's get into the list that we made. David, you want to kick us off?
sure. So yeah, some of those rules that, I would argue they're even status quo at this point, but lingering injuries they're a variant rule, I think, in D&D. But so I didn't include them because they're variant rules, but generally
Mm-hmm.
speaking, variant rules or homebrew rules fall into two categories for me, and I gravitate toward them for different reasons. The first category is something that adds specificity to vague rules or that simplifies overly complex rules. Those are the two categories. It either
Mm.
makes something that's kind of complex that ought not be complex, that maybe is handled a little bit better narratively, or something that is kind of just lacking in sophistication, like gives it complexity. And so I have a few of those things here on my list. One that I'm surprised didn't come up is technically in D&D, at least in fifth edition D&D, um, fumbling is not a thing.
Mm. Yep.
Um, a one is just a miss. It's just an
Mm-hmm.
automatic miss.
Yep.
But I like having a critical fumble chart for magic, for ranged, for melee that has a variety of different
Samesies.
options. And maybe I don't pull that lever every single time a character gets a one. Sometimes I just let it be a miss, but I like to have it in my back pocket to be like, okay, every now and again when you miss, something really bad is going to happen. That's a homebrew rule, and I think it's
Mm.
such a esoteric homebrew rule that most people don't even know that. It's not in the book that you
Yeah.
that you roll on a fumble chart or that it's a critical
Yeah.
failure or anything. Um, so I like that. Also like uh, I also tend to like roles that are what I call, or what they used to call in the Conan RPG, the fear of the unknown. When you
Mm-hmm.
see some horrid shit, like some fucking high level demon, a fucking dragon, whatever, calling for some sort of saving throw, some sort of thing that just like psyche shattering shit that the players either have to succeed on a roll or spend some sort of meta currency to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they're just kind of paralyzed with fear or they gain a flaw or something like that. Um, I think that's super duper cool and I really like it.
I do
Um,
miss like good
Another
old
rule
fashioned
that
ones that you do now in Barbarians. I don't know if this is a yeah, it is a built-in rule. The fear rolls. It reminds me of old school
mhm.
morale checks. And I've always
Yeah,
liked those. I love those.
yeah, you need to be careful not to overuse them because
Mm.
because hardened adventurers are hardly ever going to be shaken to their core by some
Oh,
shit
sure.
that they see. Um, so that's good, but you can also accept that it works well in low magic settings, lower fantasy, where most of the enemies you face are going to be beasts and they're going to be other men. And then maybe once or twice in adventure, you're coming across some sort of weird eldritch terror or whatever, and you're like,
Mm.
whoa, this is something, especially with like a lot of unique monsters in sword and sorcery and stuff. there might be some beasts that are really, horrific, dinosaurs and shit. But likely you have one kind of like a demon or some sort of unique thing that is like unique, and it isn't something that you're going to see on a regular basis. And so you just don't even know what to expect, and that kind of plays into the character's anxiety and ups the dramatic stakes. So
Hmm.
really like that mechanic. Um, One that I have tried to get the party to assimilate into that they obviously don't like, but I still stand behind. Um, I've never seen this mechanic in another game. I'm sure it exists, but I call it the sundry rule for equipment. I hate tracking equipment. I think it's stupid. I think encumbrance is stupid.
Hmm.
But I
Yep.
also don't want my characters piling everything but the kitchen sink on their backs. So, sundry equipment rule goes something like this. What weapons and armor do you have? Okay, you have weapons and armor, and they weigh a concrete specific amount. Um, those are the important things that you need to have to succeed in an adventure. Then, what is your total maximum carry weight? Let's say it's 100 pounds. So I say, okay, you have a backpack. Your armor weighs 10 pounds. Your sword weighs 3 pounds. That's 13 pounds. So you're 13 of 100. You're also carrying 1/4 or 1/2 of your total maximum carrying weight. That is non-specific items. They're just things in your pack. And anytime you need an item, all you got to do is roll strength, like some sort of mind-based thing, intelligence or strength. Strength would represent the fact that you can just put a lot of shit in your bag, and so you're more likely to have something. And intelligence or wisdom or whatever you would want to call it, mind in Barbarians of Lemira, um, just represents the fact that you were smart enough to pack well. Um, and if you roll, then and you succeed on like a modest or even low modest roll, then you have the thing that you need in your pack. You
Hmm.
know, simple, clean. You don't have to, and you still have some room in your pack to pick up things in the adventure that you might want specifically to know you have to take with you or whatever. Like your backpack's only half full, so you have like 40 pounds or whatever of stuff you can carry around. But apparently, players fucking hate this. They hate it. They like to know exactly what they have. I'm a fan of it because I don't like fuck equipment. I don't fucking
Hmm.
care about equipment. Your character should be awesome with a fucking mop stick, right? Like
Yep.
you fuck shit up with a mop stick. So I don't care. I don't care about their shit. I mean, sometimes you need specific items. You go into a dark cavern and you don't have a torch. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay,
Yeah.
I need you to have some sort of light source. But this happened last night. Cody was just like, they were going into these caves, and I was like, "Well, do any of you have any sort of light source?" And Cody was like, "No." But I spend a hero point and I find a lantern, and I'm like, there you go. Now you
Yeah.
have one, right?
Dope.
like, like a lantern. You have a lantern now. Great. It's like, so that's I'm a big fan of that. We already mentioned skill challenges,
Hmm.
but as a subset of skill challenges, I like varying degrees of success depending on like hitting different thresholds. So say you're trying to do something, a skill check or a skill challenge, and you're going to do the check as part of the skill challenge, then you have different thresholds. Like if you hit a 15, you succeed. But if you hit a 20, then this bonus fries things happen.
Right.
Or, even a ladder of like maybe you fail, but it's not so bad that you fail like as to like fall, right? Like
Hmm.
I did this with like if it works well if you're climbing stuff, where it's not just like do a climb check. Oh, you're 150 feet up and you failed the one climb check. You just fall 150 feet and die. It's like, well, that's anticlimactic. You probably should have some threshold where you can't advance and maybe lose your grip a little bit, and now you're kind of slipping. And then you do another check, and you can either get your grip back or you lose it a little more. And then if you lose it a little more, then you fall, right?
Yeah.
I like things like that. It provides more of a gradient of drama for certain types of task roles.
I
Um,
agree.
and then finally, the last one I had here was I like when there's some sort of mechanic for like sprinting movement, right? Your character has a movement. And then I like if there's like you can sprint and get somewhere faster, especially when you're talking about mounts. You get on a horse, and a horse is twice as fast as a person. But yeah, it goes twice as fast as a person just at a basic gallop. But a horse can go like 10 times faster than a person, like at a full sprint for like
Hmm.
up to an hour, even, right? Like
Yeah.
horses are made for that shit. And so, you're trying to get somewhere fast from like a village to like someplace just outside the village. I like there to be some sort of mechanic that says the horse can sprint for up to an hour at like 5 times its speed or something like that.
Yeah.
And it works well in like battlefield stuff too, where it's like, because frankly, if you were like a barbarian charging into the fray, you're not just going to like stride in like you would stride the normal pace when you're fighting. There should be some mechanic that allows you to get, across the battlefield or across terrain in a quicker manner, provided it's not like depleting some sort of energy reserve you have. So, those are the ones that I came up with. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of those.
No, actually, a couple of them, like the skill challenges, I put on mine. Uh, Fear and morale, I already had on mine as well,
Mhm.
because I already like those. I did have the equipment, the sundry equipment like yours. I had on mine item slots and Call of Cthulhu credit rating system as well, because I do,
Yeah.
and you kind of already talked about or the way that you described it, the Call of Cthulhu credit rating system, where you make a roll that says, "Can I afford this?" or
hmm
"Do I have this?" Yes, yes, I do. I like that a lot
It,
better.
th- that plays into kind of another subset of, I mean, maybe a subset of the sundry rule is I like abstract wealth.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't care about counting every gold coin either. This came up in the game last night where it was like they were like in a town and I was like they were like, "Well, how strapped for cash are we?" I'm like, "I don't know, you have a few handfuls of gold, like each of you." And they're like, "Okay, well what like can you give me at least a ballpark of what a handful of gold gets me?" I'm like, "I don't know, a meal, a bed, maybe the company of a woman, and
Mm.
like, some libations for the evening. That's like a hand of gold." And I'm like, and they're like, "Okay, so like," and I'm like, "You have maybe like a pouch of gold." And I'm like, let's just say there's 5 handfuls of gold in the pouch. There's 3 or 4 pouches in a sack. There's 2 or 3 sacks in a fucking chest, and then there's several chests in a hoard or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a kind of vague idea of like what kind of gold. And it's like, look, if you're trying to get something, tell me what you're trying to get, and then I'll have you do a roll. And if you get the roll, then you can get it. And if you don't, then you don't. And it's just most basic equipment between adventures and Barbarians of Lumira. I just say, well, you just had an adventure and you got a bunch of loot, so whatever you want, you can just have it.
Yeah.
And this is what happened last night. Cody was like, "All right, I still have this spider amulet left over um from a previous quest," and I'm like, "Okay, that's probably worth something." He's like, "Well, what can I get for it?" I'm like, "I don't know. Call it a couple pouches of gold." He's like, "Okay, cool. So now I have gold." And I'm like, "What do you use it for?" He's like, "I don't know. What can I use it for?" I'm like, "I don't know. What do you want?" He's like, "I don't know. Can I get some horses?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, you can get some horses." You got a sack of gold, like a sack of gold for 2 horses and bit and bridle and all that. Like, sure. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll get some horses." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, cool. There you go. You got some horses. Way to go." Right? Like easy enough.
Yeah.
I don't like the whole protracted like shopping in town and counting your gold and like how much do we have in reserves and where are we storing it? And it's like just fucking it's
Yeah.
tedious.
Yeah. I've
So yeah,
become a
it's like
fan.
either have abstract.
Yeah. Yeah. I've become a fan of item slots. A lot of games
Mhm,
now are doing the item slots sort of
mhm,
thing. I've been really digging that. So like, a regular sword is 1 slot, but if you have a two-handed or a great sword, that's 2 slots because
mhm,
it's a big boy and it does a little extra. It takes up some room. And because of your every character starts with this many slots, but perhaps if you, because of your class or your strength or whatever, it can go up or down. I kind of dig that because it
mhm.
just simplifies everything. Like you said, it's all for simplicity because nobody wants to fucking deal with econ, man. Fuck off on your economy. Who cares anymore?
Yeah,
I don't want to, like
it's
you said, I don't want to count every single coin. I don't want to know what every herb I have in my fucking backpack. Fuck that shit. It's not
right. And
fun
as
and it
long
takes
as
up time.
it doesn't break the game, right? Like I'm fine with you having most items, especially if those items are small enough to carry like in your pocket or in your
Hmm.
pouch. Fine, fine. You say I pull out I always use a piece of chalk, I
Yep.
pull out a piece of chalk from my, but like if you say I whip out a 10-foot pole that I've been carrying around, it's like,
Right.
okay, that's a little much, like
Or like you
you
said
don't have a whole
before,
chest on your back of stuff.
I pull out my thieves tools. I was like, "Whoa, when did you get thieves tools?" I was, oh, well, you said, no, 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 hold on. That's something completely different.
Yeah.
Or a
Yeah,
climber's
yeah,
kit or
maybe,
some
but
shit like
like
that.
Right, but between adventures, to say like Patrick was like, okay, I get some thieves tools, and I'm like, sure,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, that's
fine.
not a problem.
You have
Sure.
gold, right?
But I think that is
But like,
one
yeah,
item
just
that
to
you
pull
should
out.
have on your sheet as an inventory item because it does make a
I agree.
difference.
Yeah,
An,
but
oh,
inconsequential items are. Go ahead.
no, I was going to continue on. Please finish
Yeah, go ahead.
your idea there.
No, no, I was finished.
Mm. All right. So, not after kind of copying you a little bit, I also have two more here. Two big ones that I think I'm going to try to continue on. One of them I definitely have in all of my games, which I call the heroic action. Uh, Years
Hmm.
ago, uh, somehow Palladium and Savage Worlds came together and they said, Savage Worlds, you want rifts? And they were like, yeah, we want rifts. Like, you can have rifts if you want. And Savage Worlds was just like, we'll take rifts. It's cool. We like rifts. Rifts is a really good game. And Palladium was like, here you go. You can legally sell rifts with your system. And one of the main rules that they had for rifts, because rifts is such a, we've talked about it once or twice here on the show. Rifts is a very massive, heroic, out there game setting.
Hmm.
Yes, more of setting, really. But they had a rule in the game, in the original core rule book that was called, oh God, what was it called? Oh, yeah, In a Blaze of Glory, where if your
Yeah.
character knew you were going to die, say even in D&D, if you fail your third death save, if you know you've taken enough damage and you know you're going to die, that character gets one free action to do whatever the fuck they want. They get one last attack. They get to run in and light a bomb. They get to do whatever they want because this is the last thing that they get to do with is this character, and it's that last heroic action that they are allowed to do. And I will always give any player that ever their character ever dies and they know it's going to happen, you get one last free action to do whatever the fuck you want. Even if you do, if you want to make a horrible joke at the very end, you can do that too. But if you want to try to save everyone else by sacrificing yourself, more power to you. So that's one thing I will always bring into all of my games.
Yeah, the
Uh,
heroic sacrifice is a good mechanic.
mhm. Yeah, it's really good as long as uh I guess I would give it if they because that other than just regular sacrifice, but that's just normal sacrifice. Like if I wanted to say we're playing in our D&D game and I wanted to we're up on a cliff over lava or something, it's like I want to rush and bum rush this dude, fucking, NFL tackle this guy off into the lava. I want to take him with me. That's just a regular sacrifice. This is more of a mechanic of when you know that your character is going to die and you get a free action to do something to try to help out before you go.
Yeah.
The other one I have, the last one I have, is one that I'm trying to kind of reel in. I've seen this before on a couple like Instagram reels with other people that play D&D and role playing games, where spellcasters that are out of spell slots, if they wish, it's called oh god, what is it? It's like pushing themselves mental, pushing the pushing their boundaries or something. But what it is if you are completely out
Hmm.
of spell slots, uh, you will take a level of fatigue or of okay, what's the other word that I'm thinking of? Fatigue or I can't think of it. But for the level of the spell, that's how many points of fatigue that you will take if you decided to go ahead and cast a spell. So if you wanted to, at the very end there, you're all out of spell slots. Your healer is down, the fighter is down. It's just you and the bard left. And you know that if you cast this 6 level spell, it'll probably take down this enemy. If you take 6 levels of fatigue, I will let you cast that spell. And it's kind of just like, pushing you to your limits. And I always like this. This is why I love Shadowrun's magic so much, because you can cast as much as you want, but you're going to take damage. The more you cast, the more you're going to hurt yourself. So that's why I think I like this here. It's kind of like a last ditch effort rule that lets them push them beyond their limits for a very big price.
I also neglected to mention that I really like the splash damage rule for D&D.
Yeah.
Like when you carry over the damage for low-level minions, like if you cause 10 points of damage to somebody who has 4 hit points left, then that 6 extra points of damage can go like as like a big melee attack, especially for great weapon fighters.
That is
I
a
think
good
it's
one.
a really good way to allow them to do crowd control, like get those capabilities a little closer to what a spellcaster might get. I generally like any sort of mechanics that allow you to have some sort of battle options as a default. Like every character can do like these 3 or 4 battle options or something. It just provides a little more sophistication as long as they're not complicated. It kind of beefs up mechanics that are just basic attack mechanics where you go, okay, I'm going to do a lunging attack, or I'm going to do a trip attack, or I'm going to do, a disarm or something like that. I
Yeah.
generally like mechanics that allow you to do stuff like that too.
All right. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this discussion. For all of you out there that, hold on, sorry, excuse me. For all of you out there that have your own homebrew that we might not have talked about, send it in. Let us know. We still got a little bit while till Mechanics Month is over. Let us know your crazy mechanics that you use, your weird homebrew or other mechanics from other systems that you bring into your game. Send it into InsideTheGMstudio@gmail.com and let us know. And hey, hell, let us know, are we doing a good job over here? Or ask your own questions. What do you want us to talk about on the show? We love answering shit. As you can tell, we like talking about this stuff. So send it in. Let us know. We would love to answer your questions. Or come on over. Watch us live usually every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/InsideTheGMStudio or youtube.com/InsideTheGMStudio. Come watch us live, see our horrible faces, and you can make fun of us, talk and chat. Maybe we'll answer some questions too there. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I have been your host, Matt.
And I am David.
That's David. And he says good night.